Welcome to the Sleep Sense Show. As always, brought to you by the Sleep Sense program, where podcast listeners can get a free customized sleep plan by going to www.sleepsense.net/listen.
Hi, this is Dana. Welcome to the show. I'm going to be a little bit exclusive here today with the podcast. I'm going to share some tips today for those people working on the Sleep Sense program. One of the most frustrating parts about teaching a baby or child to sleep well is the nap. So today I'm going to share my 4 tips for helping to cure the chronic short nap. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say the Sleep Sense program, then I would encourage you to go to your computer, Google the Sleep Sense program, and see if that would be a good fit for you. That is a step-by-step strategy for helping your baby or child learn independent sleep skills and start sleeping the night and taking good quality daytime naps. Now, one of the main pain points for the clients or customers that we have who are working on the program is the short nap. Now, what do I mean by a short nap? Well, I basically am talking about any nap that is shorter than an hour. 45 minutes, sometimes I can let that slide. There has been a baby or two who seems to function well and do just great on at least one 45 nap a day. Now, I can live with that, and I would say that you're still doing well if that's the case, as long as the other nap or two that's happening in the day is of good quality length. And for that, I'm speaking an hour, hour and a half, even a 2-hour time frame. But most people find that when they're starting the program, they're really stuck in this 30 to 45 minute nap. Now let's talk a little bit about why that's happening first before I give you the tips. Everyone has what we call sleep cycles, and that's basically once you fall asleep, your body cycles through about 4 stages of sleep. The first stage is very, very light. That's just basically when you're falling asleep. We call that stage 1. Stage 2 is the first true sleep state. You are officially asleep, although it's still very light sleep. Then you transition into the deepest part of your cycle, which is stage 3 and 4, and that is really important part of the cycle for feeling refreshed and restored when you wake up in the morning or after a nap. This is a deep sleep, so it's difficult to wake a baby from stage 3, and that's something you want to see show up so that your baby's waking up happy and refreshed. Then they come back to a lighter state of sleep before they go into REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement. And that's a light sleep again. That is another important part of the sleep cycle. We know that REM sleep is very important for connecting memories, stimulating the senses, creating new neural pathways. So a lot of hard work is going on in the brain while a baby is in REM. And then that ends the cycle and another one begins, hopefully. Now for adults, we cycle through about every 90 to 120 minutes. However, and here's the clue, for babies, it's a lot shorter. We're looking at about 45 minutes on average for one sleep cycle. So it could be 30, 45, 50 minutes, somewhere in that range. So there we go. That is why. Basically, your baby has cycled through one time. They come to a very, very light, brief awakening, really, before they hopefully go into another cycle. Now, that's why it's problematic. That timing is problematic because can they get into another cycle? Hopefully, yes. Often, no, not yet. And that is because their sleep skills aren't great yet, right? They're just learning how to figure this all out. They've been dependent on you rocking or nursing or holding them while they nap, and now they're really figuring out, how do I get myself to sleep? What are the skills or strategies I need to use to make myself comfortable enough to let sleep come? So this is a work in progress, and they haven't quite mastered it yet. So when they get to the end of this cycle and have this brief little wake up, it can be the time where they start to cry for you and they need a little help or assistance, or they haven't quite figured out how they jump into another cycle. Now, one cycle is better than nothing, obviously, but for most babies, it's not going to be quite enough. And what we hope is that they go into another cycle and we have about an hour and a half long nap, which would be perfect. Not always does it go perfectly, but that's what we're striving for at least. So that's why it's happening. Now let's talk about how we can help it along. Now, the first tip is timing. Now, if you look in the Sleep Sense program, you'll see in the nap chapter an outline for basic guidelines for timing between naps. And this is really important. I think a lot of people overlook this. A baby, we want them to be fatigued enough that they're going to fall asleep in a timely manner and stay asleep long enough. So the two have to work together. We don't want a baby to be not tired enough. They'll tend to fall asleep pretty well, but just not sleep long enough. So that can be a good sign as to why we're getting a short nap. However, and here's the tricky part, going too long between naps will push your baby into overtiredness, and then they're going to have a hard time getting themselves calmed down enough to fall asleep, and it can lead to too short of a nap. So we've got this magic window of opportunity that we really are trying to figure out what's the sweet spot here for this baby as far as naps go. So this can require a little bit of tinkering as far as the time you keep your baby awake between naps. So let's just say, for the sake of our discussion, that we're talking about an 8-month-old. 8-month-old babies can usually tolerate about 3 hours, maybe 3 hours, 15 minutes of time awake before they need to sleep. So and here's where it's tricky. Some babies show their fatigue faster than some other babies do. So you might notice that she's yawning and rubbing her eyes at the 2-hour mark, and you keep trying to put her down at this 2-hour mark, but 2 weeks later, we're still having only 30 to 45-minute naps. In that case, I want you to try to push her out a little bit. Get to 2.5 at least. Try that for a few days, and then you might need to slowly inch it to 3 hours of time awake and see if that doesn't get the nap length to improve. So tinkering with timing, always a great idea. I would say most people are waiting too long, if I had to give you averages here. So I would start by decreasing your time awake by about 20 minutes and give it a few days. I mean, body clocks take time to change, people. It's not just, I tried it once, it didn't work, forget that. I always say a good rule of thumb is try everything for at least 3 days before you evaluate whether or not it's working. All right, so that's important. Also, when we're talking about timing, I'm going to talk time as well. So when you're starting the program, everybody's always super, pulling their hair out about the nights. It's the nights. If only you could sleep longer in the night. And the good news is that transformation happens relatively quickly. I would say by the end of the first week, you should be getting pretty good, if not all the way through the night out of your baby. And that's, a huge victory. So make sure you pause and celebrate that. And then our attention always shifts to the naps. They are not coming along as quickly. And first of all, that is totally normal, okay? Normal. So no panicking, no try to keep perspective on this. We've got daylight, which is working against us. We don't have melatonin. That's not helping. And daytime is fun, right? Baby, that's when they're playing and learning and exploring and being with you. And given the choice, a lot of babies would prefer not to take a nap. However, they do need it and they're going to function better with it. And that's why it's your job to make these tough decisions. So they usually take at least a week. Sometimes they can take 4 to 6 weeks before they shape up and you start feeling like you're calling it a victory around naps. So if you're just a week or 10 days even into the program and you're still feeling stuck, don't panic. This is normal. It might just be a matter of another week or so before her body clock gets in line with this. But there are some other things you can do in the meantime, which leads me to tip number 2. Darkness and comfort. I'm a big napper. I love to take a nap. I take a nap just about every day. However, I need to be comfortable in order to nap. If I'm wearing my work clothes, for example, and high heel shoes, I'm probably not going to take that good of an afternoon nap. I like to change into a pair of yoga pants or something to get comfortable so that I can actually sleep. So if you are dressing your little princess up in tutus and tights, she might not be comfortable enough to take a good quality nap. So I would suggest you have some sort of napping outfit, a nap pants or sweatpants or something comfortable that you can slide her into as part of your nap time routine. Darkness is also important. We want to try to get, some darkness into the day so that we can encourage her body and brain to consolidate 2 sleep cycles instead of just the one. So, it doesn't have to be pretty, but it needs to be dark. So get some black curtains up or blankets or tinfoil or garbage bags, you name it, whatever works. Go ahead and do it to make sure that we can try to stimulate a longer nap here. We talk about noise level a little bit because, sleep cycles are sleep cycles. We don't go into comas when we sleep. So depending on what stage of her cycle she's in, the dog barking could wake her up if she's in light stage 2. If she's in deep stage 3, then a fire alarm could go off and she's probably not going to wake up. But it really depends where she is in that process. So try to keep noise level to a minimum, right? We want to encourage her to keep sleeping. It's the same thing if you were taking a nap. You don't want your husband to be loading the dishwasher noisily or, playing guitar while you're trying to take a nap. So just be respectful of that fact. The third tip is routine. Have a look at your nap time routine. If anyone's telling me they're having nap struggles, that's the first place I look. What's in that nap time routine? You want to set the stage a little bit. Babies and children often have a hard time with transitions. They don't like to be doing one thing and then be whisked off into to another. They need a little bit of prep time. So that could involve a story, a diaper change, a song and a diaper change, maybe a little massage and a diaper change. It doesn't have to be very long. It could just be a few minutes, but it's a cue, right? That this thing we do leads us into our nap. If your nap routine includes a feed, that is probably the problem. I find that if you're hanging on to a feed before every sleep situation, you want to ask yourself why. Why are you doing that? And if you're being honest, it's probably because you think it helps, right? It helps get her calm or relaxed or sleepy. And then you put her in the crib and she magically drifts off to sleep. Well, you're cheating a little bit, right? What we want, our end goal here, is for this child to figure out how she gets to sleep from start to finish all on her own. No help from anything, right? She doesn't need help from anything. She can do this. Just takes practice. So if you're hanging on to that and you're kind of fooling yourself into thinking that you've broken that prop connection, but you haven't. You've kind of severed it a little bit, but you haven't really broken it fully. So that can be why she's waking at the end of the cycle wondering, hey, I'm not quite rested enough here, but I don't really know how to do this without the help of that feeding. I would way rather you try to organize your feed schedule so that she's getting feeds after every sleep situation, not before. Okay, so maybe that means you need to include some solids into her day at appropriate times to sort of keep that tummy full enough that nap times can be happening. Obviously, you want to make sure your child is ready for solids before you do that, but you could just tinker with her schedule a little bit as far as feeding goes so that she's getting nice full feeds after naps, which will be great because that's she's rested and she's hungry and she's ready to have a great feed. All right. The last tip I'm going to give you is to at least pause before you rush in there to whisk her out of the crib. I say at least 10 minutes of waiting because, again, she's at the end of that cycle. She might just have a little cry, fuss period there for 5 or 10 minutes and then figure out how to get into that next cycle. And that will, I always used to say to myself, I would way rather listen to 10 or 15 minutes of crying, have my child go back to sleep, wake up rested and refreshed, than get up a fatigued baby who's not had enough sleep and have them be grumpy now until the next nap time. So I would encourage you to also ask yourself that question. And if 10 minutes isn't working, try pushing it out a little bit more. Let's see if 20 minutes might get her there. And you'll be surprised, and it might not sound like it. You might hear some really angry crying in there for 9.5 minutes, and then bang, she's back to sleep. So give it time. Don't rush in. Don't just assume that you need to rescue her yet. You give her a chance to see if she can figure this out. And the good news is, like I said, this is all a matter of time and practice. And within, a range of time, you could be a lucky one and this all clicks into place in week 1, but you might be more in the realm of normal, and we're looking at anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks before it finally clicks. So these are just some tips to work on and tinker with and try it all out. And the bottom line is just be patient. It's going to come. It just can take some time. Thanks so much for listening today. Sleep well.
Thanks so much for listening. For more great tips on helping your child sleep through the night, remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show on iTunes or Stitcher, and never miss an episode.